Hi, everybody. Apparently, there's a bunch of people who have a problem with understanding what fascism, socialism, and communism are. And can't really talk about one without talking about the other ones because they're all like loosely connected and based off of each other. But let's talk about them from a historical perspective. All three of them use parts of the other ones. The we had a world war over basically all three ideologies. Um, Fascism was the political ideology of the dictator Mussolini. Communism was the political ideology of the dictator Stalin. And socialism was the political ideology of the time to get demonetized, but it was of the political ideology of the dictator who created the Nazi Party, Hitler. Okay. Now, all three of them did this, which is what fascists typically do. They were military controlled dictatorships where the military was both the police and the military. Not only were they that, but the military was and is the government. You have this, there's all kinds of governments like this all throughout the world, but basically, essentially, the military, it's a military style dictatorship, is what fascism is. And only the military, the police, the government, have the ability and rights to weapons. Okay? So only the government can have weapons, and only the government can enforce its laws and impose its laws by military. That's basically what fascism is. That's basically how socialism and communism also ran their governments. It's how Hitler ran his government. That's how Stalin ran his government. And that is how Mussolini ran his government. And historically and traditionally, a lot of European nations have been run by a monarchy. A monarchy in itself is also a form of a fascist government because the monarchy usually had their own knights and their own militaries to control the populace. Now, the only difference is back then they didn't have the same type of weapons that we do now. They had swords, and even for the most part, everybody had swords. So a monarchy is a light fascist system to a degree. Now that we have what's known as the modern military, which has guns and other weapons of both minor and mass destruction, a fascist society would be one that only allows the government and the government authorities, through usually the military, to have these types of weapons. Now, what political party in America today is pushing the same agendas from fascism, communism, and socialism? They blatantly push these agendas. Well, who wants to create speech legislation of what we can say, who we can say, it to how we can say it, etc. Well, in Canada, their Liberal Party, their socialist, their tyrannical dictator Trudeau has literally outlawed the Bible. That's violating freedom of religion and freedom of speech. And the Democrat Party here in America would love to do the same thing because they're anti-God. Because for the state in socialism and communism to gain power, and in fascism for that matter, the state has to become God. And it's easier if you have a state-controlled government where the people worship the state instead of God. So communism and socialism and fascism will either try to create an ideology where their dictator is like a messiah complex type person that is backed by their God. That's divine right of kings. When we go back to monarchy, we have that system where it was known as divine right of kings. Well, dictatorships try to use the same type of system where they have a divine right based on the church or something. Either that, or they need to get rid of God completely because government is God. And that makes the head of the government the God of the state. The state is God, so to speak, in that case. Now, also, the state, you can't say anything bad about the state or the head of the state, so you have to eliminate freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and basically the state gets to have what's known as state-sponsored television, meaning state-sponsored news, state-sponsored magazines. Which political party wants to silence the other political party and would love to have complete control over the media, which they kind of do have control over the mainstream media. Mainstream media is always pushing the Democrat view, not the Republican view. And again, Democrats also want only the police and law and military, only the government, to have weapons. They don't want the individual person to have weapons. Well, the reason we have the Second Amendment is to stop tyrannical governments. Whether that tyrannical government is our own or another tyrannical government. And fascism, communism, and socialism, dictatorships, are all forms of tyrannical governments. So the Second Amendment was to stop fascist tyrannical governments. It was to stop socialist tyrannical governments. It was to stop communist tyrannical governments. It was to stop even Republican tyrannical governments. Even a democracy that got too powerful and became tyrannical. That's what the Second Amendment's for. Stop tyranny. But the political party that wants to get rid of the people's right to bear arms is, again, the party on the left, the Democrats. So why are Republicans accused of being fascists when they're the opposite? They're the exact opposite. They're constitutionalists for the most part. And a fascist would want to do away with the Constitution because that gives too much power to the people and not enough power to the state. Socialists and communists want more power to the government, to the state. not more power to the people. So there you go. Now you know what fascism is. Fascism. Yeah. Now, Democrats do tend to say they want to defund the police. What they mean when they say defund the police is they want to get rid of the old guard and replace it with a new guard. Which is what fascism, communism, and socialism all did to their militaries. They got rid of their old militaries and replaced them with new militaries that had people that supported the government, supported the state, supported the party, supported the ideology. They want to put new people in power, get rid of the old ones, but they want to give them training and etc. Sensitivity training, no more racial profiling training, etc., etc. Even when, in some instances, from a statistical standpoint, racial profiling actually works. I mean, let's just take 9/11 for example. 9/11 and other various different terrorist activities that are done by Muslims, and we are in a war against radical fundamentalist Islamic extremists, right? Well, their Bible, the Quran, is basically a hate speech book, a terroristic book against any non-Muslims. But we can't have people admit that is truth now, can we? No. So, again, because of freedom of religion, right? But if the people doing the crimes mostly look like Middle Eastern people, would not racial profiling of people that look like Middle Eastern people actually, I don't know, work in stopping Middle Eastern people that have associate themselves with the religion of Islam and then commit acts of violence and terrorism? Also, if statistically speaking more, say, white people commit a certain type of crime, which usually white people do commit more crimes when it comes to blue collar crime, while like inner city type crimes of drugs and gangs are more associated with black people and maybe Hispanic people, depending on the city. So would not racial profiling work in that instance? I mean, if that one race or people that look like that color commit that. Now, I'll agree that there's only one race, the human race, but if more people statistically commit that crime that are look like that type of person, would not that type of profiling actually work? You're trying to eliminate an actual system that already works. Psychological profiling, and then you works. So if psychological profiling works and racial profiling works, why would you want to get rid of these implements and tools that the police have at their disposal to actually, and if DNA evidence works, why would you want to get rid of it, basically? They work, right? So why get rid of them? But these are things that defunding the police and creating new systems of how to handle. I do agree that we probably should have more community policing. That's not an issue. Uh, yeah, if the police were out in the public more instead of in their squad cars, maybe they could do a better job. If the police were out at the public events and public gatherings and assisted the people in these public events and public gatherings, um, with both security and or maybe other things, uh, like okay, have police at the various after school programs, have police at the various different nonprofit organizations, have police patrolling in shopping centers and stuff, and have them more proactively engaged and involved in the communities. I would agree with that. That's I don't I would love to see that happen. But you see a lot of police are in their squad cars a lot. And they've become, from being community police, they've become basically essentially revenue agents to collect money through basic traffic stops and traffic laws, which I don't think is that high of a priority. I mean, yes, people speed, yes, people run red lights, but unless people actually have wrecks and crash, and unless someone's actually really driving actual recklessly, um, that's not too much of a higher priority. I don't think collecting and generating revenue should be a higher priority than walking around and engaging with the community in the stores and at the nonprofit organizations and at sporting events and whatever would be to better just provide protection, security, assistance, etc. And actually doing what their motto used to be, which is protect and serve. I think that would be a better thing to do with them as a resource than, using them for revenue agents. Yeah. Yeah, that's just me on that one. So, yeah, police should be more involved in the communities. I agree with that. But not to the sense that they're still not to the sense where they're no longer aware of their surroundings, and not to the sense where they're going to let people go just because they can commit crimes or are okay with that crime or whatever, and not to just let people go, or not to have situational awareness, and not to stop their system of profiling that actually works. I would not agree with that. And also, I would not agree that they could violate people's constitutional rights, meaning they can't stop people from speech, they can't stop people from filming, they can't stop people from carrying their guns, etc. Matter of fact, they should be helping with these. Like, police should be the ones, like, the very first thing a police officer should be taking you to the gun range the very first, or be at the gun range already and be at the gun stores already, because the very first thing that you should be getting after you buy and purchase a firearm would be training, and the people who should be training you on how to do these should be law enforcement. I swear. Come on now. Anyway, so now we understand more about fascism, communism, and socialism. Now, so to accuse or call Republicans fascists is just ridiculous. when you're basically labeling Republicans of what you are yourselves, Democrats. Uh, Bernie Sanders, AOC, a whole bunch of these people are literally socialists. They literally call themselves socialists. Um, and socialism and communism and fascism are so closely linked that the Maslow's use them interchangeably within one another. And the party that's pushing that is the, here in the United States anyway, is the Democrat Party. I mean, yeah. So of course they want to change the military to their ideology of what the military should be. So of course they want to change the police to their ideology of what the police should be. Of course they want to change and stop the people from having the right to bear arms. Of course they want to create red flag laws and background checks and I mean, what's a background check? Look, if you're a criminal, it'll show that you're a criminal. But if you're not a criminal, it's just going to put your name in a registration and data bank for the government. So they know who has guns and where they have guns. Why does the government need to know who has them, where they have them, and what weapons they have? Isn't that a violation of our privacy? Think about it. Just, just going to throw that one out there. I mean, what's going to come to the time when they decide, oh, you're not allowed to have those, and then they violate your right to privacy, your right to see, because red flag laws are going to create systems where they can violate your civil liberties through illegal searches and seizures. That's what it's going to create. Which, again, Democrats are pushing for the state to have the power to just come in and take your stuff. Right now it's going to be guns. But what about later? Where it's, oh, you have too much of this or you have too much of that. Will they just get to decide how much of what you're allowed to have, how much food you're allowed to have, how much toys you're allowed to have, how much fun stuff you're allowed to have, what you're allowed to watch, what you're allowed. I mean, how far does it go exactly? Exactly. How many DVDs you can have, what kind of DVDs you are allowed to have, what you can and cannot buy, what you can and cannot sell, what you can and cannot trade, etc. I mean, seriously. Can you what you can and cannot grow in your own garden? If you're even allowed to have a garden? Seriously, how far does it go? You're basically opening up a can of worms when you allow them to take, because for one reason, it's tyranny, because where's the government going to stop? It's not. Government never stops. They always grow bigger. The more power we give them, the more they grow. They don't stop. You give them an inch, they take a mile, and so on and so forth. That's just how big government works. Big Daddy government. Big Daddy, God, is who we should be saying, we should be worshiping. So anyway, that's pretty much, I think, my rant. There's a midterm election going on, and socialists and communists want to keep the control of their population, And to keep control of your population, you have to have a smaller population. So, of course, they would be for abortion too, because the less people there are, the easier it is to control. While pro-lifers, Republicans mostly, are the ones trying to have more babies created. Just thought I'd throw that in. Now, midterms are happening probably all across the country, and we need to have a red wave because, well, unless you have a viable, good third party option like a libertarian, and what I mean by viable is something that would actually work, you should vote red wave or Republican. Now, I will say there's some rhinos that probably ain't worth voting for, so if you know they're a rhino, don't vote for them. But anyway, what I'm saying is there's midterm elections and happening all across the country, and if you care about this nation, you want to stop it from being run by fascists, socialists, and communists. Unless you believe in fascism, socialism, and communism. If you do, you're probably not watching my channel. Whew. If you want to stop those, you need to vote Republican, like everywhere, and start and create a red wave. A red wave, because blue is not for you. Blue's not for you. Blue's not for anyone. Blue's for big government. Blue's for taking away your rights. Blue's for communism, socialism, and fascism. Blue's for bigger government, smaller corporations. I mean, smaller individual freedoms and liberties. And since they don't compete with capitalism very good, blue's going to start hurting businesses too. First they'll start hurting the small businesses. And then the big businesses that don't, get in line with what the blue is going to do, they're going to start canceling them. See, that's it. Cancel culture. That's a blue thing. It also is a violation of freedom of speech too, by the way. Yeah. So, blue is definitely not for you. It's not for anyone. It's not for me. It's not for you. It's not for anybody. No way. Red wave, all the way. Go red. Republicans is the way you should be voting. Unless you want to be a fascist, then vote Democrat. You want to be a freaking liberal, vote Democrat. You want to be a communist, vote Democrat. You want to be a socialist, vote Democrat. Go ahead, vote that way. You fascist, you communist, you socialist. Go ahead, be that way. But if you smart and got some brains and you believe in the Constitution, be a conservative. If you believe in conservative traditional values, vote Republican. If you believe in Christianity and the Bible, vote Republican. If you believe in capitalism, vote Republican. If you believe in Constitution, Bill of Rights, individual liberties and freedoms, hashtag walk away from the Democrat and vote Republican. Get some sense in your skulls. Don't be a lefty. Be a righty. Right wing. Unless, of course, you've got a viable third option, which I don't see any viable third options until we get what's known as choice ranked voting. Anyway, I'll do a video about choice ranked voting and explain why it's the best option ever. One of these days, I'll do a video about that. But anyway, like I said, as it's been 30 minutes, you probably ain't watched it all. If you did, awesome. Thank you. You need to be watching all of the videos. I mean, all of it. Not the first 5 minutes or something. Come on now. Anyway, remember, God's good all the time. All the time, God's good. Keep on gaming. Keep on collecting. Keep on being Republicaning. Stay Republican, y'all. Until we find a valuable third option. You stay constitutional. Don't be a lib. And don't be a fascist. Don't be a communist. Don't be no socialist. Game on, collect on, like, comment, subscribe, share on. Have a great, wonderful day. And all that good stuff. And remember that big government sucks. Big government sucks. Small government is cool. And yeah, laters.